Simon, you've just presented Greg with the very first Variety Award for FrightFest. Tell me about those very first memories of horror for you. What made horror so important to you both?
Well, for me, I guess it was watching films like American Werewolf in London and The Thing, and latterly, the films of George Romero. And I mean, Day of the Dead was one. I was only 15 when I saw Day of the Dead, so that was the first film I saw Greg in and that he worked on. So
yes, I get it. You're younger than me. We should just talk about that for a moment. See, I would talk about movies like The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, sort of. You were.
That's only 10 years before. You were only a baby when you did, but he was like 20 when he did Day of the Dead. It's not like you were that old then.
I was old enough.
Let's put the age thing to the side, shall we? Simon, what's the most uncomfortable or strangest makeup or prosthetic you've had to have done to you?
You know what? When Greg made me up for Land of the Dead, I got to wear the...
It was really comfortable and I loved it. Thanks, Simon.
No, listen. I haven't finished my story. Greg used the same appliances that were used on Howard Sherman in Day of the Dead as Bub. So I essentially got one of my favorite zombies. And it was amazing how comfortable it was. I spent maybe 8 or 9 hours in it, and I was almost disappointed to take it off. I found there's something about immersing yourself in a character, even going through the whole kind of like head cast and stuff, which is a very claustrophobic experience. It's actually a lot of fun, and I've never really had to wear anything that hasn't been like just a trip. And that one particularly, because I was staring into the face of my favorite zombie, which was on my face, it was quite a wonderful thing. So everything Greg's ever done for me has been very comfortable.
Well put. Why didn't I should get an award for that. Oh wait, you just gave me one.
You met with zombies, in fact, didn't you? Shaun of the Dead.
Zombies brought us together.
They did. They're good for something.
They are good. They're dead, but they brought us together.
Well, we met just because Greg had seen Shaun of the Dead legendarily on a snide copy, which he didn't realize was a snide copy, and then bought friends to see it, and bought Ken Foree to see it at Comic-Con, and we met, Edgar and me met afterwards, and obviously were introduced to someone we both admired, but we just kind of hit it off. Greg was like us, he was a horror fan that had got into horror. And that was extremely heartening for us as kind of like would-be filmmakers to see someone so experienced and so kind of well-known to be exactly like we were, which is just a fan.
It's an admiration that comes, when everyone knows how hard it is to get a movie made. So let alone a movie that's entertaining, that's fun, that takes you on a journey. So when I had seen Shaun of the Dead, I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to know who the people were that made it and how it was so clever and so interesting and funny and scary all at the same time. So I think what happens is in this industry, we get fortunate enough to be able to seek out people who inspire us and ultimately get a chance to work together. So when we met, it was like, I'm not worthy. No, I'm not worthy. And then we got into a fight. No, I'm not worthy. No, I'm not.
In the end, I wasn't worthy.
What was the very first movie that put special effects makeup in your mind?
I would honestly say probably Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. Because when I was really young, before video existed, you would have to purchase these little Super 8 movies, and you could watch them over and over again. So you'd string it up and you'd watch it on the sheet in the basement. And I would watch them reverse, forward, backwards, over and over again. And seeing the Cyclops coming out of the cave and that first fight was really probably one of the first solid memories I had of special effects. And of course, from that point, going from there and then understanding makeup and seeing The Exorcist and seeing later like Dawn of the Dead and things like that. But definitely, I think Harryhausen piqued my early interest in special effects because that was really all I knew. That and Creature from the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein, the fact that they constructed it all out of putty when they built Frankenstein, and reading the stories about when they would put the hair on the Wolfman. I'm using him as my model. And then after they would glue it on, they would take a hot iron and singe the hairs so that the hairs were all even. And no wonder Lon Chaney hated being in makeup because he sat there smelling burned hair for 4 hours. There, I just ruined everything.
You've been in the industry for a number of years now. How have you seen effects change in that time?
Effects have changed considerably. I mean, ultimately our contribution is very hands-on. Sculpting, mold making. It's something physical. The artists that I work with, they're brilliant because they can take clay and transform it into the scariest zombie or the greatest character makeup. They certainly have changed in regards to the fact that digital effects and visual effects have changed the landscape of special effects. The thing that I find encouraging is it's a tool, just like visual effects, makeup, practical effects. It's really up to the director to sort of utilize each of those techniques to service the movie. And the more and more people that are younger that come into the industry that were inspired by the movies that we were inspired by, they'll still go back and watch Day of the Dead, and they'll still go back and watch The Howling and American Werewolf in London. And ultimately, they're like, I want to make a movie like that. I want to make a fake head that can transform into a werewolf. So we do have a lot of people whose inspiration is now pushing makeup effects and continuing that trend, which I love.
Guys, it's lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much.